month of Shevat, and we want to talk about today, as our custom once a month, about the more inner meaning of the month, what can be achieved during the month. Every month has a certain energy, same way that every week has a certain energy, every day has a certain energy, every year has a certain energy, so every month has a certain energy. And based on the teachings of Kabbalah, specifically by the Book of Formation, Sefer Yetzirah, and many other books of Kabbalah like the Bnei Sachar and more books and information, we know that the month is nourished and receives its energy from different sources. Based on the book of Kabbalah, of the book of Yetzirah, it's coming from the letters that the month is created and nourished from, the planets, and so forth. And we've been doing this class already for 3 years, so I don't want to repeat all the words that I say every time. So I rather go straight to the topic that we want to talk about. And every month that we do the class, I always mention that there's a certain letter that is connected to the month, a planet, but also a tribe, and also a sense. We talked about it many times that we have 12 senses corresponding to the 12 tribes. And this month, the month of Shevat, is the 11th month in the, if you're counting from Nisan, which is the right way. I mean, Nisan is the first month of the year. Tishrei, even though we call it Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, but even biblically, even according to the text, it says this is the 7th month. So we know Nisan is the first month, which makes Shvat the 11th month. And today we're going to focus a lot about the tribe of the month, which this tribe of the month is the tribe of Asher. And it's a very mysterious tribe because we don't know much about Asher. In the book of Bereshit, when we're acquainted with the tribes, then in the first 4 tribes, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, okay, the names are coming up all the time. We know stories about each and every one of them. Shimon and Levi were the ones who went to destroy Shechem, and Yehuda, we learn about him different stories. And Reuven, I mean, the names come up all the time. We do have a little bit of a understanding, a little bit of a background about these 4 first boys of Yaakov. And then the last boys, of course, Yosef and Binyamin. These are 2 stars that we hear about Yosef all the time, and Binyamin. And then in between you have, the sons of Yosef, Ephraim and Manasseh. We hear about them a lot. And in between we have Gad. Gad we know was a great warrior, and Dan was a great judge. But Asher, don't hear about Asher. Naphtali a little bit. Naphtali, we'll talk about him next month. Next month is the month of Adar. That's Naphtali. But the tribe of Asher, do you know anything about Asher? No. Is there any great individual that came out of the tribe of Asher that you can think of? No. The Tanakh doesn't give us a lot of information about the son Asher, which he's the son of Zilpah. And we don't know much about him. And I'm talking about even from Midrashim, even from the Zohar, even from the Gemara. We don't have much information about Asher, but nevertheless, he's one of the sons, he's one of the tribes. Must be that Asher has some special qualities. So today, since it's the month of Shevat, very special month, even though I know you're all freezing, but it's still a special month. And believe it or not, it's next week is Tu B'Shvat. And we know that on Tu B'Shvat, the Shkedia is porachat, is blooming and blossoming. So even in this beautiful freezing weather, we'll still see some beautiful flowers next week. And next week is Tu B'Shvat. I'm not going to talk now about Tu B'Shvat, even though we spoke about it a couple times, just to mention very quickly for the ones of you that it will make a big difference. Tu B'Shvat, we are going to have a class about it next week. But just to prepare you now, Tu B'Shvat has a great connection to Tu B'Av, to the 15th of Av, and we know Tu B'Av is the Valentine's Day, Chag HaAhava, the time when people pray for their other half, and so forth. So Tu B'Shvat is also a very, very powerful day based on the teachings of Kabbalah for finding your other half, for getting pregnant, if a woman can get pregnant, and for relations in marital relations, in marriage. So we're going to talk about it in a different class, why specifically Tu B'Shvat and what one should do on Tu B'Shvat, but everybody has some common denominator. Either you need to get married, either a woman wants to have kids, or how many happy marriages do you know? So even in the marriage itself, you need an extra push. So nevertheless, it's a very, very auspicious month of growth and a month of achievements. But we want to focus today about Asher. And like I said, there's no stories about Asher. There's no famous individual in history that came out of the tribe of Asher. And as we know that every son that was born to one of the matriarchs, then there was an explanation about the name. And in the explanation of the name of Asher, Leah, even though it's not her son, it's the son of Zilpah, but Leah was the one who named him. And when he was born, she said as follows, Be'oshri ki ashroni banot, vatikra shmo Asher. And the translation is, because of my good fortune, for women have declared me fortunate, so she named him Asher. That's what the explanation of Asher comes in the text. And basically saying, in other words, that Leah was very happy for the fact that Zilpah had a son. And that's the second son of Zilpah. Zilpah was the Shifra, the maidservant of Leah. And she voluntarily went and married Yaakov. Leah didn't tell her to do that. But nevertheless, this is where we see the beginning of the meaning of the name Asher and the month of Asher, and that's happiness. Happiness in Hebrew, you say Osher. Osher is happiness, and this is something that we all want and we're all looking for. And if we don't have that, then life is not so great. And unfortunately, 99% of people in this planet are not so happy. Now, we'll talk about it at the end of the class. What is true happiness? People think that materialism will give them happiness. So they run after a new car, a new house, new clothes, a better vacation, a nicer home, and so forth. But we are creatures that are looking for happiness any way we can. And we're willing to be used, take advantage of, and whatever, just to get some happiness. We want happiness. That's what we wish people. Just be happy. So we see that Asher, as his name is, you can read it in Hebrew, the same letters is Osher. Osher is happiness. Just Osher we write with a Vav, but you can write it without a Vav, with a Cholam Chaser. And it becomes, Asher becomes Osher. And we see also when Leah named him, she says, I was fortunate, and therefore she called him Asher. And not only that, there's another time in the Torah that Yaakov was giving blessings to all the kids. And then we see another strong connection to the names and the blessing. And what does Yaakov say? This is the blessing of Yaakov. Me'asher shamna lachmo, vehu iten ma'adanei melech. What is the translation? From Asher will come rich food, and he will yield regal delicacies. That's how I say that, delicacies. Mm-hmm. So even from the blessing of Yaakov, he says about Asher that he will have a lot of happiness and he will enjoy food and delicacies. This is another thing that most people, when they're going after the happiness, very few people are very satisfied with a little bit of food. Most people every day is like, what are we eating? And this is another way of spoiling our bodies and going out to beautiful meals and dinners. And we'll talk about it in a second, because the sense of the month is the sense of eating. And this is another part what brings a lot of people happiness. I know it's sad to say, and please don't take me personal or get hurt by what I'm saying, but a lot of people, they're a little bit sad, or a lot sad, or miserable. Where do they turn to? To a Kit Kat, to a Twinkie, to a Rogolach, to a cake. And I'm not saying in Chas v'Shalom in a hurtful way, but a lot of times we look for some sweetness, so we go to something sweet to put in our mouth. There's a lot of big connection between our mouth and happiness. Because we a lot of times think that what comes through our mouth will cause me to be happy. And but nevertheless, we'll get to this in a minute. I just want to see and point out how the name Asher and where Asher is connected in the text to what we want to learn about him. Again, in the book of Dvarim, when Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to the tribes, then Moshe Rabbeinu also is referring to Asher. And what is Moshe Rabbeinu saying? ולאשר אמר ברוך מבנים אשר יהיה רצוי אחיו וטובל בשמן רגלו. May Asher be blessed with sons, he will be pleasing to his brothers and immerse his foot in oil. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying about Asher. But again, we see that this connection to happiness, that the brothers are going to be very happy with Asher. What does that mean? We'll find in a second. But the end, this is where there's a special catch in there, and just remember that because that's what we're going to go to at the end. That the blessing of Moshe, it says, and immerses his foot in oil. Or is he going to get a pedicure? Putting his foot in oil? What does that mean? But nevertheless, we'll get to that soon. So nevertheless, we see that Asher has a strong connection with Osher, with happiness. And we see that again also in the place where Asher got a possession of the land. Asher is somewhere around here. He got the north part of Israel. And we see that the northern part of Israel is rich with fruit. That's again where it says that he's going to be constantly eating good food and delicacies and so forth. But we know that the north of Israel is blessed with the good fruit. And Yaakov says Ma'adanei Melech, these regal delicacies. And this regal delicacies we have here in Hebrew, it's called oneg. Oneg is a pleasure. You know, when you eat on Shabbat, it's called oneg Shabbat, the pleasuring of Shabbat. How do you pleasure Shabbat? With food. And oneg, which is pleasure, has very similar sound and the same letters of another word that we know is pleasure, which is Eden. Eden is also adnut, like we say Gan Eden. This is not necessarily how we translate it to heaven, but rather Gan, the garden of Eden. Eden in Hebrew is pleasure, is ta'anug. Now, like I said before, that the sense of the month of Shevat is the sense of eating. And the problem with eating is, and again, don't take my words personally, it's just to give over the idea. Most people eat like animals. And again, don't take me personal. Not how they eat, how they chew, that's a different problem. But eat to satisfy their own desire. And Bemet, please don't take my words out of context that I'm insulting somebody and saying you eat like animals. I'm saying people eat like in an animalistic character trait to satisfy my own desire, my own te'ava. Very few people eat because they need to nourish themselves or they eat healthy. Healthy food is usually not so tasty. There's not a lot of taste in it. People are more, I know, I eat healthy and it is tasty. But, people like sweet things, people like fat things and so forth. So again, when I'm saying people eat like animals, not because they eat like an animal and chew with their mouth open. That's a different problem that I'm not going to touch. But they eat to satisfy their own te'ava, their own desire. And the problem is that when you eat too much of something, then you want to throw it up already. It's like kids, when they eat too much candy, at some point you don't want to touch it anymore. You don't want to look at it anymore. And the idea, we talked about it last year, but the idea of the sense of the eating is to know how to control your desires. How many times food is placed in front of you and a person needs to know to have some restraint, some control. You don't have to jump on everything that is around me. And even though there's an abundance, doesn't mean that I have to eat 3 rogalachs. I can eat 1 rogalach. I don't have to shove my mouth and there's nothing good in it. So the idea of the food is that the eating has to be for my nourishment. and not for my self-gratification of my desires on my lusts and my te'ava about food. So we're not going to talk about the sense of the eating. I'm just putting it in it so we can see how it's all connected to Asher. But it's important to know that in this month that there is a strong connection to the sense of eating. And the sense of eating doesn't mean that we have to go to a restaurant every day this month. Rather, that we have to understand that food is about not serving my desire and my lust to the food. I don't know if you say lust on food, but the te'ava for food. Rather is to me to know how to start controlling myself and to take what I need, not what I want. Now, we do know, based on the teachings of Shlomo HaMelech in the book of Mishlei, that it says that tzaddik ochel lesova nafsho. A tzaddik, a righteous man, eats only to fulfill his appetite. I mean, the translation of the verse in Mishlei, it can be found in the book of Proverbs chapter 13, verse 25, and it says, a righteous man eats to sate his appetite, but stomach of the wicked shall feel want. So a tzaddik doesn't eat to satisfy his stomach. A tzaddik eats to satisfy his soul, which is also very interesting because the letter of the month is tzaddik. So we see here that the sense is eating. Most people eat to satisfy their own desire, but a tzaddik doesn't eat to satisfy his desire, rather to satisfy his soul. And again, the tzaddik, even though we write it tzaddik dalet yud kuf, but the letter tzaddik, that sounds exactly the same, is the letter that nourishes the month of Shevat. And that we talked about last year, if you remember. I hope your memory is sharp. When we mentioned that the tzaddik is two letters. It's a nun that is bent down. Remember I drew it out even. The tzaddik is built from two letters. The nun is a bent down nun, and an opposite yud, and which they're like back to back. But nevertheless, that we talked about last year. I don't want to continue and repeat what I said last year about specifically the tzaddik, but again, we're just connecting all the dots. So we have the tribe of the month, which is Asher, representing Osher and happiness. We have the which we see how he's connected to food and connected to pleasure. Happiness is usually pleasure brings us happiness. And the real pleasure I'm talking about, not pleasure that is fake pleasure, that will be fake happiness. And then that happiness runs out very, very fast. That's the problem, that we seek happiness, and when we don't find true happiness, then we need a substance. And then the happiness is a fake happiness, which what causes me is fake pleasure, and that runs out very fast. So I have to run after another pleasure, and another pleasure, and another pleasure, which real happiness sustains forever. So this is kind of the difference, and this is one thing we're going to focus on today. But we also mentioned the sense of the month is eating. There's a great connection between the eating and the happiness, but let's take it one step further. And we know that there is a character connected to Asher, and we hear about her a lot. And that's the daughter of Asher, and her name is Serach. Now, in some places you will find her written with a sin, Shin Reish Chet, and some places you'll find her written with a Samech. But nevertheless, her name is Serach. She's the daughter of Asher, and we find her a lot in the text. First of all, she's the only granddaughter that is mentioned in the 70 people that went down to Mitzrayim. More than that, she's the one who came and told Yaakov that Yosef is alive, and she did it in a singing, in a poem. She didn't just come and say, hey, by the way, Yosef is... she came and waltzed in with singing. She's a musician. Not only that, she's the one who showed Moshe Rabbeinu where's the coffin of Yosef. They didn't know where the coffin is. Serach was the one who came to Moshe and says it's down here. Nevertheless, then Moshe Rabbeinu said Ya'ale Shor, and the coffin came up. But nevertheless, she's the one who told Moshe, where's the coffin? And also, This is brought down in the Talmud, can be found in Tractate Sota, that we know about a very wise woman at the time of King David. We don't know who she is, but the Talmud says this is Serach. And that can be found in Tractate Sota, page 13, where it's talking about the wise woman at the time of King David. That's Serach. So what do we find out about this Serach? That she's a very old woman that doesn't die. Right? If she is the daughter of Asher, and she's the wise woman at the time of King David, well, that's what is she celebrating there? 1,000-year birthday? Probably much more. So we learned that she's a very old woman, nevertheless wise, but she never dies. And this is where we find in the Midrash a list of tzaddikim that went into Gan Eden while they were alive, and she's one of them. This can be found in Yalkut Shimoni, that it says that Serach is in the list of the tzaddikim, the righteous individuals that went into Gan Eden. Also, it says in the Zohar that Serach is the head of one of the chambers, the female chambers in Gan Eden, Heichal Nashim. And this is known as a musical, dancing, a very feminine chamber in Shamayim, in Gan Eden, and she's the head, she's the top of it. So we see that Serach is a very unique individual. She is mentioned as the daughter of Asher, but really she's not the daughter of Asher. She's the daughter of Asher's wife. Asher was married twice, and she's not a biological daughter of Asher. Rather, she's the daughter of his second wife. And this is brought down by the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, and he says that she's not a biological daughter of Asher. But nevertheless, he considered her as a daughter. And another place that it says in the Midrash that Serach was the one who received the what's called Besorat HaGeula, the message about the Geula, about the redemption. That the secret of the redemption was said to her. If you remember, you should be pretty fresh in your mind because we read it a few weeks ago. Before Yaakov Avinu dies, he gathers all his sons and he tells them, let me tell you when Mashiach is coming, who's Mashiach and what's going to happen. And the second that he wanted to tell them, Miyad nistalka da'ato. He forgot. He didn't forget. He just made a quick calculation. What would be the benefit of telling them when Mashiach is coming and who he is and so forth. But nevertheless, the secret of the redemption was given to Serach. So she knew about the redemption. And this is mentioned in two places in the text. One of them is in the Tractate Sota, same page, but this is mentioned in the Tosfot. And another place is mentioned in a book called Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, that Serach was the one who got the secret of the redemption. What does it mean, the secret? When is the redemption? Who's going to be the Mashiach? When it's all going to happen and how? So, to summarize the idea of Serach is that the daughter of Asher is symbolizing eternity, nitzchiyut, because she doesn't die. She lives for hundreds of years. She is holding the secret of the Geulah, the redemption, and she walks into Gan Eden while she's still alive. And in Gan Eden, she's the head of one of the chambers, the female chambers, where the female souls are. So we see that the significance of the daughter of Asher is because we don't know much about him, then it signifies netzach, nitzchiyut, eternity. And this is where we see that when Leah saw that Asher was born, she was filled of happiness. And you know, David HaMelech says, King David says in Tehillim 113, Kuf Yud Gimel, we read that in the song of Hallel, Em Habanim Smecha, Hallelu Yud Kei. And what is Em Habanim Smecha? The mother of the boys is happy. So Leah, when she saw Asher, she was filled of happiness. That's why she called him Asher. It brought me pleasure, so I called him Asher. So Leah is Em Habanim, Hasmecha, she's happy. Very interestingly, the words Em Habanim, the mother of the sons, has a very interesting numerical value, 147, the Gematria, which is the same Gematria of the word Netzach, eternity, eternal. So Em Habanim 147 is Netzach 147. Now even a more interesting gematria, that Em Habanim Smecha, the mother of the boys are happy, is the same numerical value of the word Asher, which is 501. So we see how it's all getting connected, that Asher, happiness, Osher, and eternity. Now, it says that from Asher will be built homes, and you know the Torah starts with a very powerful word, Bereshit. Just imagine, from all the words in the universe, Hashem chose to create the world with a word, and not to create the world, sorry, to open the Torah with a word, Bereshit. I have a book that is about 700 pages that somebody wrote, and a very large chunk of this book is explaining the word Bereshit. And this is not written by some tzaddik, it's written by a very special individual that did his homework, and he brings all the sources and so much details on one word, Bereshit. And unbelievable meanings, and what's in Bereshit, how many words are built in the word Bereshit. So here in the word Bereshit, we have two words, Bait and Asher, the house of Asher. So take the word Bereshit, you break it up, and you rewrite it. So you get, again, Bait and Asher, the house of Asher. And we just talked about Asher as being bringing happiness. But what is our major wish when we build a home, a Bait? We want to have peace. What do we say? We say Shlom Bait. We want to have peace in the house. We want to have nachat. We want to be tranquility, and we want to have happiness. What do you want in a house? Nobody wants a house full of arguments and disagreements and fighting and cursing. And you want peace in the house. You want to walk into the house and be happy. And when it says Bereshit bara Elokim, in the beginning Hashem has created the heavens and the earth. When we have the word Bereshit, Bet Asher, what did Hashem want when He created the world? When this question was presented in the Midrash, why did Hashem create the world? Nitava lo liot dira batachtonim. Hashem wanted to have a house. I mean, dira is more like an apartment, but a dwelling place in the world below. That's what the Midrash answers. Why did Hashem create the world? Did He want to be a king? Did He want to control billions of people? No. He wanted to have a dwelling place in the world below. And a dwelling place is called a bait, a happy home. What does Hashem do when He wants to build a happy home? We're going to read this now. They just left Egypt. What's the next thing they're going to do after getting the Torah? They build a home for Hashem. They build the tabernacle, a Mishkan. Right away, they left Egypt. They went out of their Mitzrayim. They received the Torah. Right away, build me a Mishkan. Build an ark so you can put the Luchot HaBrit in there. As we go into the land of Israel, after we conquer the land, what's the point? Is to build Beit HaMikdash, which we had already two destroyed, but the third one will be eternal. So we see again this idea of the eternal happiness. And when Hashem creates the world, He wants a dwelling place. To do what? Why does Hashem create a dwelling place in the world? Why does Hashem tell us, build a Mishkan, build a Beit HaMikdash? So He can have the Shekhinah dwell there. Now, how do you say in Hebrew when the Shekhinah is dwelling in the Beit HaMikdash or in the Mishkan? Hashra'at HaShekhinah. And what's the letters in Hashra'at? Asher. Again, why does Hashem want to dwell in the Beit HaMikdash, in a home? To have happiness. We all want happiness. That's all what it boils down to. So, taking all that, we want to go to the original state of why did Hashem wanted to create the world. Ratza, even though the Midrash says nit'ava, He had the desire. But the Kadosh Baruch Hu had a ratzon. He had a will. Nothing happens in this world without a will. I don't do anything if I don't arouse my ratzon. And a ratzon is my will. The Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to have a home, a dwelling place in the world below. And what's the point for that? Happiness, Osher. רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל. הקדוש ברוך הוא wanted to make it better. So, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world, he had a ratzon before he even thought of the world. I mean, we know that before the world was created, first ala b'machshava, first in the level of machshava, in the sphere of chokhmah, had a spark. But before that even, there was a ratzon, there was a desire. And right after that, then the Kadosh Baruch Hu brings into the idea of creating the world, and what's the highlight of the creation is having Bet HaMikdash. Which brings us to the last question: what is the connection in the blessing that Asher got that he's going to be soaking his feet in oil? I mean, I'm sure he wasn't looking to get a pedicure, that he has to soak his feet somewhere. But obviously, if the text is telling us that he's soaking his feet in oil, then let's see what it's talking about. Now, oil in Hebrew is called shemen. Shemen in Hebrew, I'll move. Shemen in Hebrew, it represents chokhmah, wisdom. And not only that, shemen also represents, in the mystical teachings of the Torah, what is called pnimiyut Torah, the inner part of the Torah. Now, I know that most people will argue and say, wait a minute, I thought that that wine represents the secret of the Torah, right? The sod. You're correct. Wine does represent and corresponds to the secret of the Torah. But the oil is the secret of the secret. Razin de oraita. So you have the raz is a sod, is a secret. So you have the sod of the Torah, the secret of the Torah. This will correspond to the wine. But then you have the secret of the secret. This is called razin de razin. And this is this oil, this inner secret of the Torah. Now, when a person is immersed in the secrets of the Torah, what does it bring to that person? Pleasure. What are the souls of the tzaddikim doing in Gan Eden? It says in the Talmud, Yoshvim beGan Eden ve'atrotehem beRoshehem, and they're crowned with the beautiful crowns, umitangim miziv hashchina, and they get pleasure from seeing the Shechina, the dwelling of the Shechina in Gan Eden. So when a person is attached, immersed, and learning about the secrets of the Torah, then what does it bring the person? Pleasure, ta'anug, and osher, and happiness. So when it says that he sinks his foot into oil, tovel raglo b'shemen, then it means it's referring to the shemen of the chokhmah, the oil of wisdom. And chokhmah is representing the head. We know that the sfirot are divided into two groups. There's the first three, Gimel Roshonot, that are called the mochin, the intellect. We have chokhmah, bina, and da'at. Chokhmah is the right side of the brain, bina is the left side of the brain, and da'at is the back side of the brain. So the chokhmah, the wisdom, is referring to the head. Now, where do we find a connection between oil and head? Is when the priests are inaugurated, they pour oil on their head, the shemen hamishcha. Why dafka on the head? Why don't you do a different type of ritual? And why do you pour oil on them? But nevertheless, when they're inaugurated, then the shemen hamishcha is poured on their head. You know what's amazing here? You know how you say head in Hebrew? Rosh. Reish, Aleph, and Shin. Switch the order around, you get Asher. Again, so Asher and the Rosh and so forth. Now, so what's the idea with the regel? Why is he sinking his leg into oil? The leg represents something very profound. In Hebrew it's called Asiyah Pshuta. Just do. Just do. How does Nike say? Just do it. Now they have the sticker about Shabbat. Just do it. Regel means just do it. Just do. Don't start going into sophisticated explanations. You know, our sages say about the Torah, Hama'aseh hu ha'ikar. The action is the main part. Talk is cheap, as they say. Action, do. If you don't do, what's the point? If you learn Torah all day long and you don't do nothing, so what do you learn Torah for? If you philosophize about deep concepts of the Torah and you don't do it, so why did you learn it for? To pretend that you're smart. The leg represents the doing, the action. And not only just doing it, the foot doesn't argue with the brain. When the brain says, let's go over there, the foot doesn't say, listen, I don't feel like walking there right now. So some people, the legs do say, I don't feel like walking today. But nevertheless, the foot doesn't argue. The foot just walks. And the foot is representing what is called devotion. Hitmasrut. To serve Hashem, you have to do it in a devoted way. You can't serve Hashem one day yes, one day no. It doesn't work like that. And it will never work like that. If you're not devoted to serving Hashem, you will never be a servant of Hashem. And the foot that's what it's representing, is this devotion. And the biblical term to it is called Kabbalat Ol. Accepting the yoke on me. If you're going to interview now many Torah scholars or any observant individual, if you get down to the bottom of it, is it easy to serve Hashem? No. Do you get a lot of happiness when you serve Hashem? Listen, it's not so easy waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning when it's freezing and going into an ice cold mikveh. Is it easy? You know, just the other day, my wife was telling me, which mikveh do you go to? I told her I go to the Shemen Evel. And she was like, do you like it there? I said, no, it's just close. And she was like, why don't you like it there? I said, because the water is a fraction of a degree from freezing point. It's just, you excuse my descriptions, but you get undressed and you, as it is, you start breakdancing, and then you put your leg in the water, you start singing opera, and then you have to go in the water. So, but you do it Kabbalat Ol. You think I'm enjoying myself going into freezing cold water at 5 o'clock in the morning? No, I don't enjoy it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, you go out of the water, it's some type of a rush. But I don't enjoy it. But I do it because I accept the yoke of the Torah, because I have to do it. Nobody's asking me if I like it or not. And being a servant of Hashem, it's not always so much fun. And it's not easy. And sometimes you have to really hold yourself and not to react and not to talk and not to answer and not to do certain things. And so the sinking the leg in the oil is representing that I have to be devoted to Hashem. I have to be humble in front of Hashem. I have to accept the Torah. I have to accept the yoke of the Torah. And you know why? Because that's how I'm going to reach true happiness. I will not reach any type of happiness from any type of physical thing. If you think that anything material will get you happiness, you are 100% wrong. And not only that, if you think that anything that is fake is going to give you happiness, it's not. The only happiness that you're going to get, the real happiness, is when it's the real happiness, the real source of it. First of all, that's only can come from the Torah. And the Torah is emet. Anything that is fake, emet is truth. Anything that is fake will not give you happiness. It's fake happiness. It's a chocolate that it tastes good in your mouth, and then it disappears. And the only thing that is left is a few more calories. This is called sheker, that I get a simple and a momentary gratification, and then it's over, and then I need the next fix and the next dose. But the true happiness only comes when I humble myself, when I make myself a nothing, when I make myself a servant to God, when I accept the yoke of the Torah. That's when I get the eternal happiness. So I mentioned before so many times the netzach and the nitzchiyut and the eternity and serach, because the real happiness is eternal happiness. And this is where we find a very special secret. When you say, when you do a mitzvah, what do you do before that? You say a blessing. We can now make a course about why we say blessings. Okay, you ask a child why you say a blessing, because we thank Hashem. Okay, that's very nice of you that you thank Hashem. Okay, why do we say a bracha? Well, there's many different interpretations and explanations why we say a blessing. There are millions of people who are not Jews, and they're also doing mitzvot, and they're not saying a blessing. Why they're not saying a blessing? You know that the Gentiles also have to serve Hashem. There's no difference between us and them. We have 613 mitzvot, and they have 7 mitzvot. They still have to serve Hashem, and they still have to follow the Torah. How come the Noahites, they're not saying a blessing? So we're not going to address this right now, but when we say a blessing, what do we say? Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. Asher is which. But when you translate the verse, is who sanctified us with his mitzvot. But we use the name Asher and the word Asher. So Asher is Osher, is happiness, and Hashem who sanctified us with his mitzvot. That's how you get the true happiness. So since we're all looking for happiness, happiness is not going to be found in a Mercedes or a beautiful apartment or a cruise or a nice watch or clothes or dinner or anything that is fake. If you are running after fake things, the happiness will be fake and momentary. If you want true happiness, the eternal happiness, it's only in the Torah. That's why we should say, Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. This is why our sages have chosen the words very carefully. Because you want the real happiness, it's only when you're sanctified in the mitzvot of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's only when you humble yourself in front of Hashem. It's always only when you make yourself devoted to Hashem. When you immerse yourself in the Torah. And the real connection to the Torah can only be done from the secrets of the Torah. That's why we see in our generation, it's the most popular topic in the world. To learn the secrets of the secrets. You know that based on the information that one of the biggest book publishers in the world, Barnes and Noble, look it up. They say that the second most desired topic in the world is Kabbalah. The secrets of the Torah. So now is a thirst before Mashiach is coming, because that's our connection to Hashem. What do you think we're going to learn when Mashiach is going to come? Torah chadasha me'iti titzeh, says the prophet. A new Torah is going to be revealed. The secrets of the secrets. Mashiach is going to start teaching us every little detail and why we do every little thing. The secret of the secret. Razin de oraita. So we have a very special month where I can get attached to the source that allows me to reach this unbelievable eternal happiness. So I know we're freezing, but I have a friend in Florida, he's not so freezing. He's like, it's 80 degrees here. But nevertheless, it's the month where we have the opportunity to connect to our inner, deeper essence. And that's why, specifically, it's the month that the Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year of the trees are, because trees are representing the growth and the blooming. Now in the winter, the trees are all naked, barely anything. You know, the garden looks like a haunted witch house. You know, there's no leaves. But once there's a little bit of life, then the tree starts growing again, and the flowers are blooming and blossoming. So we have an unbelievable opportunity in this month to, if we're looking at the sense of the month, is I have to know how to restrict myself, I have to control my desires, not to jump on everything that my te'ava, that my desire is telling me. But nevertheless, it's a time when I can really focus on how can I reach to my inner happiness. And there's no other way. If you believe anything different, then you have false beliefs. There's no other way to reach true happiness. There's only one way of reaching true happiness is connecting to Hashem, to connecting to your essence and being submerged and immersed in the Torah. That's why he says about Asher that he will immerse his feet in oil. You have to be immersed in it. You cannot come and visit the Torah once a week. You cannot come to a class once a week and the Torah is like a hobby. The Torah is not a hobby. You have to be immersed in it. If it's your life. And if you're not immersed in it, then you're not immersed in the oil. You'll never be connected, and then the happiness will never be eternal. So, not more than that, we see a great connection to the coming of Mashiach with the information that the secret that Serach was holding, the Bet HaMikdash, the dwelling place of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, where the dwelling of the Shekhinah, the Hashra'at HaShekhinah, all this all connected, so we see what a powerful month that we have. So we need to put our focus on, and the focus should be, if you want to narrow it into tasks, is first and most important is don't run after your desires, after your te'avot, whether it's food, whether it's whatever it is. And we constantly are controlled by our desires. I desire right now this and I desire that. Then I have to know how to put restrictions on my desires. And the easiest way to do it is with food. And again, I'm not attacking anybody. Everybody has a sweet tooth or whatever. The food is a big practice here. And you know, now, interestingly, one of my sons is now getting into working out and health. And So he's reading all sorts of information, he's working out. So he just found out now that it's very not healthy to eat any type of carbs or sugar in the morning. And he tells me, how am I going to do that? I said, well, it's very easy. So I also don't eat till 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I eat, but nothing that has to do with carbs or sugar. I don't have coffee before 1 o'clock in the afternoon. People have coffee first thing in the morning. But you put sugar in your coffee. And if you don't put sugar, then you put milk or whatever it is. But the point is that he's developing his will to be healthy, to work out, which is very good. But it comes with a lot of restraint and a lot of discipline. And I can't do this right now. No, you can't do this right now. You can't eat chocolate whenever you want. If you want to be in good shape and you want to look good, you want your body to be in good, you can't eat whatever you want. So we're the same thing. The practical thing that we want to apply in this mouth is you want to restrict yourself. Don't just do whatever you want. But the next thing that we want to do in order to reach this true happiness is just emerging or submerging, dipping the foot in the oil, is subduing myself to the Kadosh Baruch Hu, devote myself to Hashem, and annul myself in front of Hashem. And this is an opportunity that when I do that practically this month, then I have a greater connection to my inner connection to Hashem, to my essence, and which ultimately brings in the true happiness. If you look at the greatest Torah scholars, whether they're poor or homeless or whatever, they're always happy. They don't need the materialism of the world to be happy. This is the fake happiness that you think that materialism will give you happiness. Look at the ones who are really connected to the Kadosh Baruch Hu, all day long, happy. Look at the Baal Shem Tov, brought the whole movement of Chassidut. It was all about happiness. Originally, where did they get the name Chassidut and the Chassids? Originally, they weren't called Chassidim. They were called the happy ones. A Chassid is a person who's devoted to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. But originally, 300 years ago, the ones who chose the path of Chassidut, they were called the happy ones. Because all they did is jump and happy, and the scholars would sit seriously. The Torah was very serious. If you go to Vilna 300 years ago, stark, serious. You learn Torah. There's no room for now being stupid or foolish. And the Hasidim came in with a completely different attitude. Let's have a l'chaim and start dancing. And so really we have to serve Hashem b'simcha. This is Osher, Asher, the happiness. So we want to take all this information and really apply it into our life so we can gain true happiness, so we can gain eternal happiness. And the ultimate thing that we will gain from that is the true dwelling place of Hashem in this world, which is going to be in Bet HaMikdash HaShlishi, that we know that Serach got the key, she got the information. Now we just need to do the legwork. All the dots are all connected already. Everything is ready. We need to do the legwork. And Bezat Hashem, we put our mind to it. Hashem will make us successful, and we merit Bezat Hashem to finally see the coming of Mashiach and feel and experience this eternal happiness. Have a beautiful, beautiful Chodesh.